Hello everybody, it's Shrouded Hand here. Some videos are disturbing not because of what is seen on screen, but because of what it doesn't show. 2016, Loxahatchee, Florida. What we're looking at here is a crime scene walkthrough of the Ullman household. On the 1st of April 2016, Kristen Meyer Ullman called 911, reporting that her 13-month-old daughter, Taylor, wasn't breathing. The baby was taken to hospital, but there she was pronounced dead. Immediately afterwards, the parents were arrested and the remaining children were taken away. This is a house of extreme child neglect. Some of the shots feel poignant, like how the video opens on some discarded Nerf guns surrounded by what looks like feces or some other brown-black filth smeared on the carpets. The cameraman most likely is just forensically recording the full extent of the horrors inside the house. I don't think there's much artistic direction behind where they point the camera, but it's like you can feel their thought process as they walk around the property, where they direct the lens, which details they choose to linger on. It feels very stark and very cold and bare. It must be a child's bedroom, but there's hardly any toys, no colour or signs of love. And now I believe this is bedroom 2. It's described as having black stained, wet, sticky carpets, which you don't see in the video. And there's pretty hefty sound equipment in this room, but apart from that it's again very stark and bare. Kristen Meyer and Alejandro Ullman lived in this house with their 10 children. The oldest was 15 years old, the youngest was the 13-month-old baby. The kids must have shared beds because there's definitely not enough for all of them. From all accounts, the kids were mostly left to their own devices, locked out of the house for most of the day and left to run riot around the neighbourhood. Neighbours reported that the kids were often seen begging for food and water or searching through trash cans. They would also generally cause trouble up and down the street. It makes me wonder if the scant few toys that you do see were given to them by their parents, or they were just stolen and scavenged from the street. Into the bathroom now, more filth on the floor amongst the cracked and missing tiles. I'll play a bit of the original audio here and take a listen. You can hear the TV still on in the background. This must have been recorded immediately after the arrest. The family were taken away before they were even able to turn off the television, so everything we're seeing is exactly how they were living right up until they were taken away. Notice no soap or anything to wash with, apart from that one bottle on the windowsill, whatever that is. The toilet, according to the description, was filled with unflushed feces and urine. Apparently, the stench could be smelled from the driveway outside. And now we're looking at the dining area and family room. I say dining area, but I don't know if anyone actually ate in here. I'm sure there's a dining table and dinnerware, but it looks almost ornamental piled up like that, like it's never actually been used. As I've alluded to in the title of the video, the children in this house were hardly ever fed. The family room looks almost normal, a little messy perhaps, but whose house isn't? Looking at it, you could almost believe that a normal family life went on here. In actual fact, the children were half feral. This would explain why investigators found feces smeared on the walls. Most of the kids had never been to school and they hadn't learned to speak. Some of them could only communicate in grunts. Taylor, that 13-month-old child that died, was found to be so severely malnourished that she weighed less than when she was born. She died wearing a onesie made for a 3-month-old baby. She had no teeth and her hair was falling out. Her lower body was covered in a severe and infected diaper rash. She was sick with multiple strains of influenza and she was in the early stages of pneumonia. The kitchen is, as you'd expect, disgusting. It looks like there is some stuff to eat, but apparently the fridge and freezers were malfunctioning, so a lot of the food is expired and rotting. You can see at the bottom all that black liquid seeping out. I doubt much of this stuff was actually edible.
I know Taylor was born over 8 pounds, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, she was either slighted, I think she was like 8 pounds. She was right at 8 pounds.
Right,
yes.
about 8 pounds.
All my kids are fine. Yeah.
8 pounds, 15 ounces, to be exact.
Was she? Okay.
Yeah. And when Taylor passed away at 13 months old,
They said she weighed 7 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I guess I never saw that. I mean, I knew she was small, but as a mother of 10 children, and now 11, very thin, but always drank his milk, never had a problem with feeding, just like her. I never had a problem feeding her. She never, she never not wanted the bottle. She always wanted it. It was consistent formula.
In the fridge, some cheese slices and condiments, no proper food, more rot and stink at the bottom. The milk surprisingly is in date for another couple of days, although look at the colour of this one compared to the other. This stuff's definitely going bad before its time. Apparently the other children were found covered in dirt and bug bites and were unusually lethargic, as if they were extremely exhausted. They had been starved to the point that the police found it very difficult to wake them up. Strange then that the parents don't look malnourished at all. In fact, they seem to have been eating very well. After their arrest while she was in prison, Kristen sent letters to Alejandro telling him how much she loved him, saying that they'd done nothing wrong and they would both get through this together. During the initial interviews, she said that they'd both looked after the children very well. It was only after she was threatened with the death penalty that she changed her story. Now she said that Alejandro verbally, sexually and physically abused her to the point that she was a prisoner in her own home. This had exasperated her mental health conditions until she had become unable to look after the children. Alejandro, she said, was a cold and distant father who didn't really spend any time with the children. Instead, he spent the family's welfare money on drugs and alcohol, leaving them without food. Alejandro Allman was known as a violent and controlling man. Even his own mother was terrified of him. In 2015, he was temporarily living at his parents' house in Green Acres, and his mother filed a petition for protection because she was so scared that he would hurt her. In the petition, she stated that Alejandro threatened to kill my husband and me. We want to report him to child protection, but he says he will hurt us. He doesn't take care of our children. He refused to leave our home. So it's not much of a stretch to suggest he might have been abusive towards his own wife. The fact that Kristen sent Alejandro love letters at first and only came out with abuse allegations when faced with the death penalty is a little suspicious, but it could be true. She could have been so gaslit and controlled by him that she continued to defend him for some time after their arrest. I guess unless you were present in the house whilst it was happening, it's very hard to say what the truth of the matter is. I think that's part of what makes the footage eerie, trying to imagine what did or didn't happen within these rooms, never really seeing the full picture. We know that something monstrous happened here, but how much domestic abuse and mental health problems contributed to that, it's hard to really prove either way.
Did you ever notice how extremely underweight Taylor was for a 13-month-old?
I didn't pick up my daughter. I came home late. I laid down. I saw her. She was dressed. I mean, I didn't bathe her. I didn't do any of that. So no, I didn't pay attention to that.
So onto the master bedroom now, and this is where Kristen and Alejandro slept. What I notice immediately is how cluttered this room is compared to the stark emptiness of the children's rooms. It looks like a hoarder's room. The unsorted piles of clothes and other belongings show the general lack of care and untidiness of the occupants, but it feels much more lived in. Much like the parents' own well-fed appearance compared to the starvation of their children, I think the condition of their room compared to the children's room shows a little bit more about their character. Most sinister of all is the crib, ironically next to a pile of cookbooks. Among all the filth and clutter of the house, the crib looks like a little vibrant oasis. The neatly arranged toys, the clean looking blanket, You'd hardly believe that this was where a baby starved to death. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of a starved baby. It's horrible. They look desiccated and shrunken. How a mother of 10 children wouldn't have recognised these signs is something I can't get my head round. She would have known what a healthy 13-month-old should look like. How she could look at her own daughter, withered and sore-covered, and not think to take her to the doctor. Even if the claims of domestic abuse and mental illness are true, she was left alone with her children for extended periods of times. It was ultimately up to her to protect them. At some point you would have thought that her motherly instinct would kick in and she would have sought help.
It's alright. Every time we absolutely understand, okay?
You can't even understand what it's done to me. It's killed me inside.
That's why this image of the lovingly arranged crib seems so out of place. It makes me wonder if maybe it was arranged that way after Taylor stopped breathing, maybe while they were waiting for the ambulance to arrive. A little bit of theatre to make it look like they were actually taking care of their starved and sore-covered child. It would explain why the diaper ointment is placed so prominently, and why the blanket looks like no child has ever lay on it. I've got no evidence that they actually did this, it was just a thought, an example of the disturbing kind of speculation that this footage brings up. The laundry room is as you'd imagine. It doesn't look like any washing has been done here in a long time. It seems that clothes got dirty and they were just thrown into this room and forgotten about. Considering the kids were found covered in feces, I do wonder how dirty did the clothes have to get before they were considered too filthy to wear and they were dumped into this room. Apparently this room had a massive stench of mildew and mould. And finally, one of the hardest parts to watch, and I'll point this out right away. This dog was taken away immediately to a shelter. It was cleaned up and treated well. It had only been in the Ullman house for 2 weeks, so most likely it made a full recovery and was rehomed. But in that short space of time, it had become covered in fleas and left in a cage that had 2 inches of its own feces and urine caked to the floor. The utter dejection in its body language says it all. That's where the video ends, and that's the Ullman Neglect House. A look inside the disturbing hidden life of unspeakable deprivation and abuse. Both parents faced charges of first-degree murder, and they would most likely have got the death penalty if convicted. In the end, they both took a plea deal and pleaded guilty to aggravated manslaughter of a child. Kristen Mayer got a 23-year prison sentence. Alejandro Ullman got 20 years. With parole hearings, they could be out sooner. The children, I hope, were fostered or adopted into much better situations, although it would be hard to find a much worse situation than what they were in. Kristen Mayer was several months pregnant with her 11th child at the time of Taylor's death. The extra child would have heaped even more pressure on the household. The conditions would have got even worse, and the cycle of starvation and neglect would have started all over again. The one silver lining is that this cycle was broken with the death of Taylor Ullman. It's not much of a silver lining, and I'm sure earlier intervention would have saved her life too, but at least the hell that was the Ullman house ended there. And how are you liking the horribly depressing videos this month? This is why I have to do a video about gnomes or something every now and then just to break things up, but I hope you found it informative, and I do like to shine a light on the hidden darker sides of life. Big thanks to all of you who are supporting the channel. Thank you for all the help keeping things running. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. Thank you very much. Thanks also for watching the video. If you're new here, then check out my other content and you might find that interesting too. Until next time, goodbye.
Is there a law that, I'm not trying to be about this, but is there a law that your baby has to go to the doctor?
Yes, it's called medical treatment.
Okay,